The IDF confirmed that it has eliminated a terrorist responsible for the death of a pregnant Israeli mother in Samaria. The terror attack from last week has become a new focal point for Israelis defending their homeland.
This is not just another tragedy, it's the face of evil. A mother bringing life into the world, struck down by terror. The Prime Minister expressed the shock of the nation. This abhorrent attack shows the difference between us, who cherish life, and the terrorists who seek to destroy it, he said.
That was Israeli government spokesman David Mincer last week. Now, this attack in Samaria, the region referred to by the international community as the West Bank, is where our friend Yossi Dagan is governor. In fact, he was with us in D.C. last week and had to return because of the attack. Now, here with the latest on this story and more from Jerusalem is another one of our friends, Chris Mitchell, Middle East Bureau Chief at CBN News. Chris, welcome back to Washington Watch, and once again, thanks for staying up late.
Sure. Great to be with you again, Tony.
So what's the latest on last week's terrorist attack that killed a pregnant mother who was on her way to the hospital to give birth?
It's hard to think of a more tragic ending to her life, Tony. On her way to deliver her fifth child, in what could have been a celebration, another joy in their family, and she was tragically murdered. And then her baby, right now, her son, is in critical condition, fighting for his life. Apparently, he was 50 minutes without oxygen. So it's yet to be determined how he's going to survive or what condition he'll be surviving. But this is just one of many terror attacks that happen almost regularly there in Judea and Samaria. Over 6,000 incidents in the last year or so, anywhere from throwing rocks to a shooting attack like this. They have found and eliminated the terrorists who did that. But this is something that the residents of Judea and Samaria. This is the biblical heartland of Israel. You were there just a few days ago, Tony, and these are the stories of Shiloh, Joshua, Abraham. This is the heartland of the Bible, and this is many of those people there believe they're fulfilling prophecy, and yet the world condemns them as settlers, usurpers, colonists, but they're just returning to their biblical heartland, their homeland, for more than 3,000 years.
Yeah, in fact, Chris, I was right on that very road where that incident took place just about 3 weeks ago. Now, the Samaria Regional Council, which Governor Dagan heads, moved their office to the site of the terror attack. What's the significance of this move?
Well, they want to make sure that they're sending a message that they're not leaving. If anything, they're going to plant their roots even deeper into this biblical heartland. And as I said, this is something they believe they're fulfilling prophecy. The prophets said of old, Isaiah and Jeremiah, that the people of Israel would return one day. And after 2,000 years, after the dispersion, after 70 AD, that the Jewish people are coming back. And so the message is we're staying. We're not going to leave. We're going to plant our roots even deeper. And this is just one sign of what happens many times after a tragic terror attack like this.
And Bible-believing Christians can stand with them by using the right terminology of referring to this as Judea and Samaria and not the West Bank, as the international community does, which really only seeks to incite and inflame the division in those areas.
Yeah, and there's really been a momentum in the last year or so, Tony, and you've heard about this. The NRB is recommending, they did this last year, that all Christian broadcasters will use the term Judea and Samaria. There's a caucus on Capitol Hill about Judea and Samaria, here in the Knesset as well. So there's a momentum to make sure that the biblical name that goes thousands of years replaces the West Bank term, which is only decades old and really is a misnomer. And it really gives a different sense of really what this land is and who the people are that are settling it. And that is a pejorative term to many as well, but they believe they're coming back to their biblical homeland. And it's important to be praying for their safety as they go on the many roads that you were just a few weeks ago.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Well, Chris, there's a lot happening in Israel. Let's start with the IDF's Operation Gideons Chariots in Gaza. What's the status with that?
Well, it started just a couple of days ago. It was preceded by massive hundreds of airstrikes inside Gaza. Gideon's Chariot represents a strategic change in the way the IDF has been maneuvering since October 7th. The idea right now is to clear and control the land in Gaza, meaning that when they take over land, they're not going to cede it, they're not going to withdraw, they're going to control that land, with the idea that they would continue to seize more land and squeeze Hamas into smaller and smaller territories while taking the population of Gaza to humanitarian areas to get them out of harm's way. So what this does is what had been happening is that they would come into an area with special operations. They would control the area, but they would leave. And that way Hamas would return to that. So this is a big strategy right now, a change in strategy for Israel. And so the idea is two things: to defeat Hamas finally, and to release all the hostages. Now, 20 are still alive. We believe 38 have tragically died in captivity. And as many people are all over the world praying for their release.
Well, Chris, this is not coming without criticism. The United Nations, no surprise there, but the United Kingdom, France, and Canada appear to be upset with Israel as it pertains to Gaza and the humanitarian aspects.
Yeah, very exactly. Just the other day, they came out, all three nations came against them and threatening concrete actions against Israel. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was on a press conference just earlier this evening defending what Israel is doing. Also, Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell was saying, speaking to these nations, what would you do if you had an enemy like Hamas on your border, threatening to annihilate you, threatening to repeat what happened on October 7th? If that happened to either France, the UK, or Canada, things might be they might see things much differently. So Israel's defending its actions. Why they're trying to eliminate this menace from its borders.
Chris Mitchell, my take is that Israel has to finish it this time. They can't pull back out and let it kind of fester. If they don't do it this time, I think the international community will not tolerate it.
No, I think so too. This is probably the last chance that Netanyahu and the IDF have to make their case. And they have 5 divisions there, and they're moving presumably as fast as they can, because they're getting pressure not only from these 3 nations and the United Nations, but also the White House would like to see this over as soon as possible. Perhaps that's a result of the meetings that President Trump had with Sunni leaders in the Gulf states. But this is probably the last opportunity that Israel has. He also said, Netanyahu said, that the relocation plan by President Trump is part of the day after the war in Gaza, and where many of these Palestinians would end up in other countries, and they would rebuild the Gaza Strip.
Chris, you mentioned the White House. The Iranian Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, explicitly rejected the U.S. demand that Iran stop enriching uranium and said he doesn't, quote, expect much from the current negotiations.
It seems like the red line for Iran is enriching uranium. They say that's a national privilege, a right for them to do it. And the aims of the Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy, and the Trump administration seems to be a position that they cannot enrich uranium. And how they come together in that remains to be seen. And it seems like Iran is intransigent about enriching uranium. And I'm not sure how these negotiators are going to be able to come to an agreement that's satisfactory to the United States as well as Israel.
Well, back in mid-March, President Trump set a 60-day deadline in a letter to the Supreme Leader saying, we've got to come to an agreement within those 60 days. Those 60 days have come and gone. We're into 38 days since the first official talks began between Iran and the U.S., and we're still no closer to a deal. My sense is time is running out.
Very much so, yeah. It seems like the patience of President Trump and the White House is running out. And if you see these both positions by Iran and the U.S. Unbridgeable, we'll see what happens. And the possibility, I know there was a report in CNN, and whether or not that's reliable right now, but still the word is out there. Well, Israel's preparing for a military strike. Israel's been preparing for a military strike for years, but I'm not sure they would do anything while negotiations are going on. And if there was a deal, whether or not they would actually strike Iran's nuclear facilities if there was a deal with the U.S. and Iran.
Yeah, Chris, I would tend to agree with you. There was a CNN report released just today. Actually, I think it was yesterday. Says the U.S. has obtained new intelligence suggesting that Israel is making preparations to strike Iranian nuclear facilities, even as the Trump administration has been pursuing a diplomatic deal with Tehran. Multiple U.S. officials familiar with the latest intelligence told CNN. Now, I'll just, my first read on this is I know the close relationship that the Israeli leadership has with the Trump administration at every level. And I also know that there's a lot of criticism when the Biden administration released intelligence on Israel and their military. I can't imagine that the Trump administration, the Department of Defense, the intelligence community would release anything that might signal or tip Iran off to what Israel might be doing.
Yeah, I would agree, Tony. And this may be just trying to put more pressure on Iran. And throughout all this, there's just so much important issues to be praying about. I mean, we're talking about history-changing events here if Israel attacks Iran. And we also need to pray for those people in Iran. A lot of people talk about the nuclear facilities, but there are tens of millions of people that have been suffering under this regime since 1979. We know that many people are actually coming to faith in Jesus through dreams and visions, but many of these people are hungering for freedom. And perhaps if these nuclear sites did go down, then there would be an uprising of the people. That's what the hope or expectation of some people. But lots and lots to pray about here in the Middle East.
You're absolutely right. And I know that our program actually reaches into Iran, and I want the Iranian people to know that, we're praying for them. We do know that there are a lot of believers. There's revival taking place there. The regime does not represent the people by and large. Chris, I just have about a minute and a half left. I do want to encourage people to be praying for our leaders, the leaders of Israel, and these are very important decisions. But as a believer, as a Bible-believing Christian, I think it's extremely important that we pray that America is on the right side of the issue when it comes to Israel. Now, it doesn't mean we agree with everything they do or the tactics that they might take, but we have to, I think, be very careful because I believe the Word of God in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3 remains in effect.
History is replete with how Genesis 12:3 turns out, that those that bless Israel will be blessed, those that curse Israel will be cursed. We have a good friend, Bill Koenig's written a book, Eye to Eye, and he actually chronicled how standing against Israel, can have consequences for nations, and particularly the U.S. So I think it's so important for the United States or any nation to be standing with Israel, and as you say, not agreeing with everything, but standing with Israel and the Jewish people.
Chris Mitchell, always great to see you. Thanks so much for your insights and information that you provide there from Jerusalem.
Thanks, Tony.